Hello and welcome to Wheels Boy, and welcome to Guangzhou, China, where we've come to accomplish two very important tasks. The first is to avoid the typhoon that is currently engulfing Shanghai, and the second is a little more interesting. We're here to drive this, the XPeng G9, an electric SUV that's set to go up against the likes of the Neo ES6 and the newly announced Li Auto L8. Let's get started.
With hands-on test drives and reviews of exciting Chinese market vehicles, Wheelsboy is the #1 source for China auto insights. Be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook.
Between you and me, I think XPeng's design language is in a pretty weird place right now. You see, they're like one of those families where they've got 4 kids and 3 of the kids look exactly the same. But then there's that one kid that kind of looks a little bit different. That one kid, that's the XPeng P5. All the other models, the G3i, the P7, and the new G9, all look kind of the same. It's just the P5 that's kind of out there on its own. It's not an unattractive car at all. It's just not quite as striking as the other 3. I'm happy to say that the G9 takes after the P7, XPeng's first sedan, which has one of the most impactful designs of the past probably, 5 or 6 years. If you go on the streets here in China, a lot of cars have clearly borrowed from that design, particularly the upper LED DRL kind of running light here. That also is, of course, on the G9. The G9, though, being an SUV, has a much bigger face, especially because it needs to fit LiDAR units on either side. The sculpting on the side of this car is also very reminiscent to that of the P7. I described that car as looking like a river rock that had tumbled so long that it had just been worn completely smooth. That's the same for this one. Everything is smooth lines. There's very few flat surfaces to be found. One thing I want to point out is up here, this isn't really a roof rack. This is just kind of a design element, and this thing back here, that's the 5G antenna. Same for the one on the other side. We don't have any official numbers as to the storage capacity here in the back of the XPeng G9. However, it is only available as a 2-row SUV, and it measures around 4.9 meters in length. So as you'd expect, it's very big, very deep especially. There's also just a little bit of storage here underneath this board.
Sitting inside the G9, you quickly realize that this is the most luxurious interior that XPeng has produced so far. In terms of material quality and ergonomics, it's a serious step up from their next most expensive model, the P7. Speaking of the P7, the G9 retains some of the styling cues from that car, but the use of dual 15-inch screens and a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8155 chip definitely reminds us of the Li Auto L9.
The highlight inside of this car, especially here for the front row, is definitely X Opera. That is the 28 audio unit, 2,250 watt sound system that XPeng has installed here in the G9. Now notice I said 28 audio units. That's because those audio units make up both speakers that you can see here on the doors and above you, as well as a bunch that are embedded into the seats here in the front row, right under your bum, and then here on the side, and then on your back as well. Those, when you're watching a movie or listening to music, kind of pump out sound, so you have kind of a vibration to it, almost like one of those 4D theaters. It's a very interesting experience. I've really never had my butt vibrate while listening to Michael Jackson before. I kind of liked it.
One small thing that I really appreciated about the dual screens of the G9 is that the passenger screen is not visible from the driver's seat, making it less of a distraction. Don't worry, you can also watch movies on the center screen.
This isn't something I get to say about a lot of cars, but the rear seats in the G9 are very nearly as comfortable as the front seats. Not only do you have a wheelbase of 2.998 meters, meaning you have plenty of legroom, as you can see, you also have a very good headroom thanks to this giant overhead glass. You also have highly adjustable seats that are just as long and as soft as the ones up front. When I say highly adjustable, I mean that they are adjustable down here for the length and the support under the thighs, and when it comes to rake, just like this. You also have massaging and heating in this spec here in the back seat, and in the front, you have heating, cooling, and massaging.
The G9 is available with two different battery packs. Entry-level models come with a 78.2 kWh LFP pack, delivering 570 kilometers of CLTC range. However, buyers can choose to upgrade to a 98 kWh lithium-ion pack that delivers up to 702 kilometers of CLTC range. There are also two different powertrains. Option 1 is a single rear-mounted motor that delivers 230 kilowatts and 430 newton-meters of torque. That's 310 horsepower and 318 pound-feet.
Option 2 is this, the all-wheel drive dual-motor performance version that makes 405 kilowatts and 717 newton-meters of torque. That's 550 horsepower and 530 pound-feet, aka more than enough. There's no official 0 to 100 kilometer per hour time yet, but we're told it should be under 4 seconds. Having driven this car for a little while, I find that very easy to believe. The CLTC range, by the way, 650 kilometers.
All versions of the G9 come standard with China's first 800-volt mass production silicon carbide platform. However, all-wheel drive models can be optioned with a 4C supercharging pack for an extra $1,400 US. When plugged into XPeng's S4 charging station, the company says these models can add up to 200 kilometers of CLTC range in as little as 5 minutes. S4 chargers are currently only available in Guangzhou, but XPeng says it will begin deploying them across other major cities in China, including Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen, by the end of the year.
But here's where it gets interesting, because according to the very nice people at XPeng, this car's driving dynamics were benchmarked on that of the Porsche Cayenne, one of, if not the best handling SUVs available in this size category, the mid-size SUV category. That is a very, very lofty target, and I gotta be honest, I don't think the G9 gets there. The thing is, when you drive a Porsche, even a Cayenne, an SUV that large, it kind of encourages you to drive it, not aggressively, but in a sporting manner. It's a sporty thing, a sporty SUV. This car, well, it's not particularly sporty. The inputs, they're just too light. The steering is light and not very communicative at all. The throttle, or the accelerator I should say, is even lighter. In fact, it really just drives like a lifted version of an XPeng P7. And actually, that should be okay, because I like the way the XPeng P7 drives. In fact, I think that XPeng comparing this car to a Porsche Cayenne does it a bit of a disservice, because it sets you up for disappointment. Ultimately, it doesn't handle anything like a Cayenne, but if you consider it based on its own merits, it's a comfortable and competent SUV. This thing's NVH is very good, even on the highway. And the suspension, it's that adjustable air suspension, it's actually very comfortable in almost every driving situation. I will say, when you put it in the sport driving mode, the suspension turns a little bit too bouncy. But again, ignore the sporty part, focus on the comfort, and you will have a great time driving this car. One area where this car should really outdo more traditional SUVs like the Porsche Cayenne is in terms of its driver assistance systems, or ADAS. Now, this car we're driving right now is a pre-production model, so it doesn't even have cruise control, basic cruise control, let alone adaptive cruise control or even a level 2 driver assistance system. When it hits customer hands, however, it will be equipped with XPeng's NGP 3.0, which is their term for their current most advanced driving system, which has navigation on autopilot on the highways. We experienced that with the XPeng P7, and it's honestly a very good system. However, it's been available on the P7 for a couple of years now at least. This car has LiDAR units. Now, the XPeng's last model, the P5, also had LiDAR units and was supposed to debut XPeng's NGP 3.5. Now, that was supposed to take advantage of the LiDAR units, but almost a year after that car's debut and after we drove it, NGP 3.5 is nowhere to be found. It's probably good then that they haven't told us exactly when 3.5 is going to be available for this car.
Pricing for the G9 wasn't available when we filmed our video, but has since become a bit of a headache for XPeng. The first round of prices received considerable pushback from customers who felt XPeng was asking too much for certain models. In response, the company announced a new pricing and specification structure, which kept the base model's price at $44,000 US, but lowered the price of the top spec all-wheel drive performance model to $59,000 US, a decrease of $5,000 USD. Those prices make it XPeng's most expensive car ever and puts it in direct competition with both the Neo ES6 and ES7. not to mention the Li Auto L8 and L9. We haven't driven the L8 yet, but we have tested the L9, even putting it up against a BMW X7. Needless to say, the G9 is entering a highly competitive segment.
While I think that comparing this car's driving experience to that of a Porsche Cayenne is, well, a little bit unrealistic, and I would have preferred to actually be able to try out all of its driving features, particularly that ADAS with LiDAR, considering we've been waiting so long for it, I can say with certainty that this is the most comfortable and most luxurious XPeng model yet. And that's just gonna have to do for now. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and our brand new website. All those links are in the description below. And as always, like, subscribe, and hit the bell.